Hello, everybody. This is Rick Wilson. Welcome to Dragonproof. And let me just say Happy New Year. Now, you might ask why I'm saying Happy New Year. Well, a couple things. This is our first podcast recording of 2021, but we are recording this today on January 21st of 2021, which I'm not going to go into politics too much today, but I will say this. It feels like the new year I've been waiting 3 weeks for. America's back. And with that, we're back. And so Happy New Year. Welcome to a new year, a new chapter for America, and most importantly, a new chapter for e-commerce. On this show, there's an ongoing tension between self-empowerment advice and e-commerce business advice. And I'm going to thread that needle today. I want to talk about why I talk about those two subjects so much and really what my goal is on this podcast for getting out of that. And one of the things I've been contemplating a lot lately is at what point do you start embracing your expertise? When I was in my early 20s, when I first came to Miva, I thought of myself as the young buck. I was a comer, if you will. I had lots of dreams. Most of those dreams, looking back on it, were ridiculous. I mean, and if those of you who remember the Time magazine cover, and this is about to age myself, in 1999, there was a Time magazine cover of an Instanair, implying that this 20-something kid, who I think was the original founder of Dig, Kevin, I forget his last name, but he was suddenly worth untold money, and he was an Instanair. And I imagined at that point, right as I was about to come to work for Miva, that I would also become an Instanair, that by this point in my life, I would be living on yachts and not talking to anybody. Those things are so ridiculous looking back on them. But what it did for me is it began a career journey. And what I have found, and I will come back to this over and over again, is self-reflection is a big part of personal growth. And it's a big part of business. I believe businesses that succeed disrupt themselves. That's a Steve Jobs principle. But it's not just a Steve Jobs principle. It's a principle across the board. You constantly look at what you're doing and where you're going, and you reflect and you refine. And part of that, as you get older and you've been in business longer, both personally and professionally, at what point do you go from being the young buck who's the comer, who's trying to hustle and prove your point? At what point do you embrace your own expertise? At what point was it okay for me to go from being the person who's going to change the world to, hey, I've actually had a great career and I have things I want to share about it. And for me, that point is now. I am an expert. I'm an expert in specific things, but I'm an expert, and that expertise can help myself reflecting on it, and it can help you, the listener. And so in 1999, I came to work for Miva as the original director of North American sales. Miva was 2 going on 3 at the time. We were one of the very first e-commerce platforms to ever exist during the dot-com boom. There was no such thing as software as a service back then. So we sold it to web hosting companies, what you would think of today as a GoDaddy. And I literally traveled around the country and around the world for that matter, selling to web hosting companies. And we were just trying to evangelize, if you will, what an e-commerce platform was. Fast forward 22 years now. Geez. And we have sold Miva twice, and sold it the second time to myself and some others. And we've rebuilt and replatformed Miva as a SaaS company, software as a service, focused on mid-market customers. We've gone from a handful of employees to well over 100 and growing and profitable. And so it really has provided lots of perspective on success. And part of that was my own journey. Where did I want to be? What did I want to accomplish? And in my 20s, I was like almost everyone. I was worried about things like paying my rent, paying my car payment. And it's okay to get to a point in your career where you're not worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage, or even better yet, not even have a mortgage anymore. It's okay to travel and enjoy yourself, and it's okay to share those things with others. There has to be a mentor. There has to be a beacon that helps other people see a journey and take from that journey what they want. No one has to follow your journey. I don't expect anyone to follow mine, and I certainly haven't followed anyone else's. But there's nothing that gives me probably more joy, which is one of the reasons I do this podcast, than if my journey can help shape someone else's. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing that inspires me most is to share my journey with someone else and have it improve their lives. And not because they did what I did, but because they took what I did, like a cooking ingredient, and morphed it into something beautiful that I never thought of. And I have a number of friends who have used me as a sounding board. A good friend we've heard from on the show, Corey from Maya Jewelry. God knows, if you know me, I couldn't design jewelry to save my life. But here is this thing that's this beautiful art project that's come from our interactions and our friendship, that I was a small piece of the seeding dough that she has turned into beautiful success. And at the end of the day, what that tells me is that everyone listening has the power to improve their lives and their businesses. And the funny thing is e-commerce itself is in a very similar transition. I wasn't just the young buck in 1999. E-commerce was by definition of the young buck. It was even slightly younger than me, if you will. And now we're both old enough to drink, as they say. And so our audience is hopefully entrepreneurs, business people, people who want to do self-reflection, people who want to reflect on where they are in life and ultimately where they're going. We all have, life comes in different acts, and e-commerce is in act 2. And I believe I'm in act 2. So that's convenient. And so we get a chance to define what act 2 is, and to really share ourselves with the greater business world and make business a positive outcome. One thing that's always struck me is that, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a trend in society that was anti-business. This idea that business people were bad, business people were evil, they were greedy, and I am not that. I'm not saying I have not suffered from greed. I am a human being. I suffer from almost any advice I will ever give you comes from trying the opposite and realizing how bad it is. But but I think being a business person is a noble pursuit. And I think people who listen to this, who want to have a business and who want to be successful, that is a noble pursuit, because it is what gives you a platform to achieve all sorts of other goals in your life. And so that is why self-growth or personal growth and business growth are so intertwined to me. Because the fact of the matter is, if you have a successful business, you are likely paying employees who is allowing them to have a stable and successful life, but you're also able to have a platform to do your own dreams and focus on your own things and ultimately find purpose. And that is what we're here. So my personal mission is to help make happen in whatever way I can to serve you, the listener, and help you find your own journey and your own dream. Or maybe you're exactly right next to me on the journey, and it's just nice to hear someone else, oh, wow, yeah, I went through that too. And so that's why we're here today. So, I'm happy you're here. If you're listening, thank you for being here. This is something that's very exciting for me to share with you. When I was that young buck, Bill Clinton had just become president, or was actually, when I was the Meva young buck, Bill Clinton had just ended his presidency, or was just about to end his presidency. And I remember looking up to Bill Clinton when I was in college, and he was about my age now. And he was clearly an expert. And he was president of the United States at that point, and he embraced his expertise, and we're going to get to embrace our expertise here. So e-commerce had a banner 2020, to say the least. And what's fascinating, and I spend a lot of time talking to different people. I was talking to Nathan, the CEO of ShipStation, this past week, and we were talking about how e-commerce has the gains, the ground we captured in 2020 is permanent. The gains are permanent. This was not a temporary spike. What we saw was a change in consumer behavior. And it's in all sorts of things. It's people now want to start their shopping journey, or many people want to start their shopping journey via an electronic device, whether it's their phone, their tablet, their voice, their computer. And they want their process to be intertwined with technology. I want to be able to order something. I want to be able to drive up to Target. I want to be able to grab my phone. I want to be able to push the button to the trunk of my car. And I want someone to put it in the trunk of my car. Fundamentally, e-commerce literally gained a decade's worth of growth in about 3 months last year. And the beauty is we get to keep growing from here. We don't go back. We literally just go back to our old growth trend line. And it's really it's a wonderful place to be. And I'm glad we get to experience that. And The reason I think that's true, the reason I think e-commerce had a banner year, and the reason I think you're seeing these trends, it wasn't a fluke. It was that the technology that we're leveraging for our businesses is it allows people to rethink things and change paradigms, um, which is great all the time, but it's incredibly important in hard times. The reason e-commerce was able to come of age and step up and really serve all of us. I mean, think about how much how think about food delivery, whether it's groceries or prepared meals. And that's not the type of e-commerce I normally focus on, but without Uber Eats, without Postmates, without DoorDash, without Uber Cart, or why am I blanking on the name of the cart? But Instacart, without Instacart, you would have had to increase your risk exposure to COVID to get your groceries or to get your food delivered. And e-commerce truly served a life-saving need by helping people social distance during the pandemic and still serve what they needed. And so, all of this crystallized the trend. It made it so there was no longer a question in anyone's mind about the role of technology in commerce. And it's worth noting right now, America, for all of the optimism I feel, for saying Happy New Year at the opening of the show, America, the world, is still in hard times. There is a cliche about it's darkest before dawn, and that is where I believe we are. It is 4 a.m., and it is mighty cold outside. And we know that in 2 hours, it's going to start warming up. But those next 2 hours are really critical. And this is e-commerce's time to embrace that and help us all get through those next 2 hours. Fundamentally, e-commerce is the tool that's going to help us as business people navigate the rest of this crisis and grow the world out of this crisis. Define what the new normal is. It is up to us as leaders, and that is where we're going. And when it comes to what makes me excited, it really is about the role of technology in the process of business. And let me take a personal story to try to articulate this. I used to get my physical exercise a lot of just, going out and living life and doing life. And I've belonged to, like most people at 48 years old, I've belonged to more gyms than I can count. And I spent a lot of money on days for gyms I never went to. But one of the things that happened during the pandemic for me, and I think for a lot of people, is I had to rethink it. It forced a paradigm change, and I had to rethink my habits. And so now I work out routinely on my Peloton or whether it's outside, but I have been able to change my habits fundamentally because of pandemic, out of necessity. The cliche about necessity is the mother of invention. And that's what happened to e-commerce. The technology was the necessity that allowed us to survive this pandemic as business people. So what you should focus on here is how can you lean in to that? How can you take those gains and continue articulating your business? Is there something in your business process that you can see a seed of that came about in 2020 that you want more of? What would you want more of as a customer? What would you want more of from your own business and your own product? 50% of all e-commerce purchases were completed on an app in 2020. Are you leveraging that? Is that something you're focused on? Do you have an app? Do you need an app? And those are things that you need to be leaning into. And we talk about e-commerce, and it's funny because the term itself has an air of distributed or distance, but so much of what's been driving it has been the blend between in-person and digital. So, let's just take a simple example. I order my Starbucks now before I leave my house, and I swing by Starbucks and I get it. That is an e-commerce transaction. It has displaced a previous in-person transaction. However, Many times before the app and before my ability to walk in and grab it in a safe, socially distanced way, if I rolled up to a Starbucks or any coffee shop and there was too long of a line, I would simply leave because my need for that coffee, while high, I will grant you, was not so high that I could say waste 30 minutes in line. But this technology has allowed me to guarantee within a 99% certainty that when I get to the Starbucks, my order will be waiting. I can say hi to my baristas. I can tip them, and I can leave in a contactless, I should say in a frictionless process while socially distanced and safe. I get all of the benefits of the Starbucks community or the coffee community without having to unduly risk myself or them. And I get the benefits I had before. And I haven't looked at Starbucks' results or the coffee industry, but I have a sneaking suspicion they are benefiting from pandemic. And there's an ongoing merging of social and commerce. We'd seen that before, but I would ask if you reflect how many things. Well, let me say it this way: 3 years ago, most people I knew, including myself, had either bought nothing or one or two things based on a social media ad. They had maybe seen a product on Instagram and bought it. I would bet almost anyone listening now has had the experience of buying some Chinese crap, so to speak, on Instagram that looked real great on Instagram. By the time you got it, you had some significant buyer's remorse. And so, those things, the fact that is now a commonplace experience, that almost anyone you talk to can give you a cautionary tale about not trusting an Instagram ad, what that tells you is that social commerce has come of age. And it's also why Facebook wants to be in the marketplace game. Their marketplace is currently known for, well, I would just say this: Craigslist has a better rep than their marketplace, but don't fool yourself. 5 years from now, I have a lot of beef with Facebook. I personally think Facebook has done significant harm to our society. And I think that social media companies, not just Facebook, social media companies have a reckoning coming. And that will be a different legacy of 2020. But with that said, Facebook is a well-ran business, and I would not discount their marketplace product. I would not discount anyone who has that kind of reach. So I think a couple things I want to talk about that's worth considering here. I want to talk about current obstacles in the market, and then I'm going to talk about trends and where this is all going. And I want to talk about our role in it, what we're going to do here at Dragonproof. So one of the things about obstacles that struck me as interesting, and this was kind of an epiphany the other day. A friend of mine has just started a jewelry business with her mom, and it's all handmade stuff. It's great. And they don't have a lot of quantity of inventory yet. So, they're in their first steps mode, and hopefully in 10 years, they're a guest on the podcast and they've been a wild success like other people we know. But one thing I realized, they asked me for advice on how to get started. How do I get started in e-commerce? And by the time I was done talking, which only lasted a couple minutes, I had realized I had overwhelmed them. It required people who understood SEO. It required people who understood social marketing. It required great product photography. It required a platform to sell your stuff. It required understanding what your costs were. And I could see that what I thought was just kind of sharing some basic, simple information was already overwhelming to them. And so the obstacles for e-commerce today, if you're just starting out, is that there's so many more things you have to do right from the get-go. It used to be that having a product and a couple pictures and a website was enough to actually build a business. That is not the case today. You have to have more. You have to have expertise. If you don't personally obtain that expertise, you have to seek it out. You have to find people and partner with people and learn from people who have that expertise. It is much harder to succeed in e-commerce today from a dead stop than it has ever been in the past. But that is counterbalanced against a world in which the trend is that e-commerce is the future. There's a notion that software is eating the world. If you've never heard that phrase, it's a fun little rabbit hole if you want to go Google it and read about all the articles. But software is eating the world tells you that software is fundamentally changing every industry. If you want to know why Tesla is worth more than General Motors, it's because of software. Tesla is a software company that happens to make automobiles. General Motors is an automobile company that is struggling to master software. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal this past week about how Volkswagen is $50 billion and 5 years into building electric vehicles that everyone assumed would just clean Tesla's clock. And they can't even get their software to update securely because being a software company is hard. And the reason I'm telling you this story is that is the trend of e-commerce. E-commerce is eating retail. Software is eating the world, and e-commerce is eating retail, and it's for all the same reasons. So the trend is, and you want to lean into this trend, the person who's investing in technology and in software and in e-commerce is going to win. And that winning is defined by you. Whether you want to build a lifestyle business or you want to be Jeff Bezos, you define the win. But do not mistake. E-commerce and technology and software are what are going to drive that wind. And there are trends. There's AR glasses, there's voice shopping. Those are all amazing. But the real trends are deeper integration of e-commerce into our daily life for normal people. The fact that my mom can order Starbucks from her phone, the fact that my mom can text me from her iPhone is a minor technological miracle. And don't discount those things. I recently heard Intel has a new CEO. If you haven't heard, Apple released their own Apple Silicon this past year. And I will just tell you, as someone who's literally recording this podcast on one of their MacBook Airs with an M1 chip, it's amazing. It was a feat of engineering that is unreal. And Intel, it shook Intel so much they fired their CEO and replaced him. And the new CEO came in and made a quip about we have to be better at chips than some lifestyle company in Cupertino. Now, I get the need to go rile up your troops and we're going to take the hill. Shit, God knows I've done that stuff. But I also think that statement was telling, and I don't think it's foretelling well for Intel. If Intel thinks Apple's a lifestyle company, even if it was just a quote unquote joke, because we all know all jokes are based on some truth. If that's his real perspective, then he doesn't understand why Apple's cleaning everyone's clock. And so if you want to understand what the deeper trend is, it's not about glasses on your face or your voice ordering from an Alexa. It is understanding how we are reimagining and reintegrating our lives around technology. So at the end of the day, I encourage you to self-reflect. That is step one. Self-reflection will help you disrupt your own company. And there is nothing better than disrupting your own company because it keeps someone else from disrupting your company. Embrace your wisdom, and self-reflection will allow you to see where you're lacking wisdom. And it's okay to lack wisdom. I was reading a thing Arnold Schwarzenegger posted online the last couple days about public health. And you might laugh, and what on earth does Arnold Schwarzenegger know about this? But he certainly has a storied and varied career. But what he basically said in his post on Facebook was, hey, if you want to know how to build great biceps, seek me out. I've been called the world's greatest bodybuilder. If you want to know about public health, seek out someone like Anthony Fauci. Do not watch 10 minutes of YouTube videos and assume you are somehow equivalent to Anthony Fauci. And that is called self-awareness. And that's what you want to do here. When you're an expert, own your expertise. When you lack expertise, find someone to be one for you. And so if you want to know about e-commerce expertise, I am here for you. And what we're going to do in 2021 is this. We're going to put out a couple episodes a month. We're going to have an amazing guests from the e-commerce world and from other parts of the world. We might have personal growth guests on. I might have my own friends on just to talk about things. I might talk about Burning Man. I don't know. We'll see if Burning Man happens this year. But there's going to be all sorts of great free content to inspire and educate and to encourage you to go on your own journey. Because the journey, to be cliche, is the destination. So thanks for listening, everyone. Merry 2021, if that's a saying. And I will talk to you in 2 weeks.